Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here in Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And on Samson's take, the court won't injunct investigations. There have been attempts to injunct investigations started by law enforcement agents. Some of the attempts are to stop the investigations outright. During the vetting process, we just ended yesterday with Supreme Court nominees. One of the judges, Justice Akabuafu, suggested that that was not a helpful approach. In fact, he was blunt in saying he doesn't see how that will work. I've been wondering myself what goes into the thinking of those who attempt to stop investigations. It is therefore not surprising that the court's Human Rights Division refused the attempt to injunct the OSP for declaring Ken Ofori-Atta wanted. It's another curious thing that the politicians give misleading information in seeking to do what they call legal education of the populace. That if a court has not given an order expressly, you cannot declare someone wanted, a subject of criminal investigations. That's absolutely wrong. And the more they do that, the more they try to muscle and weaken state institutions that must do investigations and help all of us to keep our collective security intact. We are not a jungle. And it takes the law to hold the scales even. It takes the law to prevent a situation where the fittest survive in society. By the time a state agency or law enforcement is declaring somebody wanted, they would have secured a warrant. The warrant is to look for them and arrest them. They're looking for a human being. They're not looking for an animal or an item. They must not look for them in the secret. They will search for them in the open. Partly the purpose of Interpol, if they can't find you around within the jurisdiction, they can escalate that. So they put you on a setting notice for the entire world to help to find you. Warrants are issued partly for that purpose. And we declare people wanted because they are fleeing and we can't find them. So when you say they cannot declare them wanted, at what time should anybody be declared wanted? It will be at that phase. So it was very refreshing to hear the judge say that that appears to be a very wrong approach, which will not yield any results. We are insisting that some people should be treated differently with what you call trial in absentia. Yes, trial in absentia can happen. The Constitution provides that it can happen. But guess what? The Constitution says it must happen under two conditions. Where the person has absconded, the one you are looking for has absconded, has run away. 2, where the person has made it impracticable for the trial to happen in their presence. So the default position of the law is that the trial must happen in the presence of the person. And guess what? It says trial in absentia must happen when the person has been charged. If you have not been charged with an offense, you cannot be put on a trial in absentia. How do you get charged? You get charged through an arrest, or call it invitation, which may come into the same situation of arrest, or that a summons is issued by the court for you. Charges are preferred. You are required to give a caution statement and a charge statement. The Constitution says it is only after this that we can try you in absentia. If you abscond, like Benjilo and his friend did, 2 of them out of the 5 who were put in trial in 1994, was it? 99. They escaped. The trial happened because they had been charged. Sedina Tamaklo Atieno, she was charged, former Masterstroke boss. She was charged. She ran away. Trial happened. She was already charged. So let's give the people the right education and not mislead them. This will be my take. And watching the vetting process, one very refreshing thing to me was that I saw about 2 of the judges whose names were up in 2023 for appointment. Justices Efia Sewa Sareboche and Eric Che Bafo, they were there supporting their friends who have been nominated now. It was beautiful. And that will be my take. Be right back. Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. My guest in the studio, Shamima Muslim, is Deputy Presidential Spokesperson. Alhaji Haruna Mohammed is Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. Godfrey Bokwing is Professor of Finance and Economist at the University of Ghana. The 3 of them are right here in the studio, and joining us via Zoom, Professor Kosienin, Security Analyst. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is Fellow CDD Ghana and Project Director, the Democracy Project. We also have Reverend Father Michael Kweko, Director of Governance, Justice and Peace, Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making time to join us this morning.
Thank you for having us. Good morning.
Great. So we are beginning with the rather disturbing situation of the continuing Galamsey situation. And now the Kenashigbe and his team, the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences have also risen up, and they are baring their teeth at the president to take concrete action. At least the 2 lead institutions, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey and the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, who have also been on this Galamsey crusade for a very long time, are demanding 2 clear things. It was for a repeal you promised, Mr. President, and not for an amendment of LI 2462. Why amend? We'll understand why the amendment still doesn't work for the campaigners. There must be a state of emergency declared in those areas devastated by Galamsey. The president appeared to have been positive about this in opposition, but now what is happening? Why is he hesitant? Let's listen to a couple of people, Kenashigbe, Hanabisu, who has gone through a bit of a problem, the Minister Mutala, and also the Chinese ambassador, who is saying, you just can't do away with small-scale mining, find another way around. Let's watch them.
Bracket minerals in forest reserve, mining in forest reserves, Amendment Regulation 2025 will mature and come into effect today. As a people, our only recourse will be to continue our court case. This will be unfortunate at a time when Ghanaians expect a true reset in governance. The executive must not sit aloof while citizens are left to their fate to fight for the future of the very country we entrusted into the hands of His Excellency the President. While the NDC leadership under His Excellency the President publicly condemned illegal mining, the Honorable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources and IGP have demonstrated positive actions to deal with the scourge of Galamsey. However, some of their local officials allegedly profit from it. We demand, 1, that immediate investigations into the case of Honorable Oscar Lardy, MP for our win, and the chiefs that have accused him that he has counter-accused. And these two chairpersons of Axim, constituency chairpersons of Axim and Dunkwao, by the police and national security, ensuring complete transparency and no room for political protection. 2, public disciplinary action by the NDC if any of these allegations are proven.
It will never be an exchange of what we have to do. Never. It's like the word NEVER, NAUVER, never, nunca in Spanish. No. And in fact, I've not left the red mode. It's still there. Only that you don't know when I'm moving.
When next you're moving.
No. That will never come out. Not even with the staff. I have just about 2-3 people that will work. And it will never, nothing that you do me. And so I want to allay their fears. Okay? China, when I went there, by the grace of God, I was encouraged by them to push, and they said if there's any support that we need for that, they are ready to support.
Let's wrap up on the excavators. If you go to these communities, that's the machinery you'll find, but they're huge. So if someone is transporting them or moving them into these communities, we should be able to find them. And also, what form of responsibility should these heavy equipment companies take in terms of paying royalties for the level of destruction taking place?
I think that the president has spoken several measures that they put in place when it comes to these excavator things. But notwithstanding, though, we still have some excavators still in the bushes. The week before we went to, I think, the Achuma or Mankransu area there, brand new excavator, brand new, it's in the bush, so it's ready to destroy. And what we got up from our confrere in collaboration with the regional commander and the regional minister, I'm very grateful, Honorable Minister. They've been able to move them to, I think, to the RCC. Right. I'll be following up because so just after that, we had to go for the China Africa Trade Expo. And so I'll be following up. I want to push for these excavators to be ushered, and the money should be accounted for. What has to go to government goes to government, and I propose that what will come out of it should be channeled back to the community to repair some of the damages that they have done.
All the concerns that have been raised are concerns that are being dealt with the petition against the sitting member of parliament, in which, if you listen to the press conference, the president or the presidency acknowledged receipt of the petition and the necessary investigation are being done on the matter. This government is not willing under any circumstance to shield anybody who is engaged in this. And today, the LI 2462 is now a law.
Minister, so no total repeal?
Well, I think that the major issue that was raised, even so, if we bring a new law today, it's most likely in the next 1 month, 2 months, people may have concerns about it. Those issues they have concerns about it are issues that were the major concern they had at the time was the authorization or the privilege the presidency had, to authorize people to go and mine in forest reserve areas, which we have taken away. I have realized that there are some aspects of the existing law, excluding what has been repealed, that they still have problems with. And I can assure him and assure everybody that these are things government is considering seriously.
I do not know what's the reason why when people say Galamsey, they normally equals that with Chinese. But actually, it is not Chinese who, the issue is not originated from Chinese. I mean, you can see those mining, Chinese people cannot get the license, cannot get the permit. It's the Ghanaian people who draw Chinese people over here, and some of those people who are even caught red-handed, even though they are caught red-handed, they're just some like migrant workers to come here to make a living. I'm not treated well because they always say, because I have a social media, when I posted X on my social media, then people say, hey, Ambassador Galamsey, it seems, Galamsey is caused by China. So this is unfair to me. Am I correct? This is unfair to me. This is really unfair to me. And unfair to the overwhelming majority of Chinese. They have involved a lot of sectors. You can see, you can say, a lot of buildings built by Chinese companies, your roads built by Chinese companies, your port built by Chinese companies. But is any normal Ghanaian people know about this? Or even they know it, they always say Galamsey. They always say Galamsey.
Right. So, Prof, do you understand why the campaigners can't seem to take a rest?
I understand. I've said it before that if anything will cause me to leave this country, it will be irresponsible mining. And let's not take it for granted. The biggest threat to Ghana's economy is irresponsible mining.
Explain that.
The biggest threat to our very economic survivability is irresponsible mining. And I want to appeal to the president. I know he wants to leave a legacy. That legacy must be linked to restoration of our ecological sustainability. He can't run away from that. Look, I am expecting, going forward, that the world will begin to boycott our gold. Because this is blood gold. This is blood gold. We are talking about green gold. The world is moving more towards sustainability. Of course, I understand that given the stage of our development, we need to balance how the extent to which we move on the path of sustainability, green economy, energy transition, and all of that. But this is not a good balance. This is an intentional drive of creating existential threat that is much closer than perhaps anyone would think. And it is not out of proportion when people are concerned. Because you know something, the economy can never exist outside the environment. In fact, there's a reason why if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, everything is linked to sustainability. Whether you look at it from poverty reduction, narrowing inequality, and all of that. In fact, there is a reason why, for a long time, when we talk about peace, they are associated with marketing, 7 Ps, 5 Ps. But we talk about peace in development now, because the understanding is that development must meet the 5 Ps. What are the 5 Ps? It must preserve the planet Earth. So any growth process that does not substantially preserve our planet Earth is not sustainable. And the drive is that we should be moving away from environmentally destructive growth model to a more sustainable one. How do you achieve that? You achieve that by developing innovative, generative ideas that leverages on your finite natural resources to a more sustainable growth. But we are not doing that. And we are saying that development must be about the people. It must reflect peace and all of that. Unfortunately, we have taken a path. And you see, it's not just our economy. We need to solve or deal with irresponsible mining even as a way of preserving our democracy. The integrity of our democracy is at risk. Of course, I can understand the interplay between political party financing and all of that. So if you look at the complex nature of this, perhaps is the reason why politicians are more effective in opposition, trying to deal with this because they identify with ordinary Ghanaians. Probably they hope that will benefit them. Then when they have enjoyed the benefit of that, they come to power, and it seems like things have changed overnight.
The claim is that this government is only 6 months in office, and they have shown promise. They have cracked down. They've done a lot of things. Hannah Bisu, you saw there, literally put her life, in harm's way, herself in harm's way, trying to help in this process. The IGP, as Erastus Asaredonko updates us, is appearing to do quite a great job in, raiding community by community.
Samson, we are not ungrateful people. When we see good, we can see. When we see genuine intention backed by action, I think we can see. So far, if you look at the other indicators, and I have said it, that the economy is rebounding strongly. You look at the aggressive strengthening of the currency, of course, we could have reservations about the pace. You look at Fitch rating. I was actually expecting this much earlier, okay? And if you look at the kind of leadership the president has put on the table, I think that gives confidence to the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Bank of Ghana. I respect the president for that. In fact, Samson, it was the reason why I supported the 1 Ghana cedi levy. I looked at the dynamic. I said, look, if you have a good CEO with a good plan, you need to support him with resources to deliver on that. It was the reason why I supported that. So I congratulate the president on those lines. But Mr. President, when it comes to how you are dealing with irresponsible mining, I am afraid I am not with you. And Samson, yes, 6 months is too short. But you know what? 6 months has also been long enough for the president to demonstrate. Do we need like 3 years to declare state of emergency? How many years do we need to repeal the LI, which they all agreed in opposition that it ought to go? So it's not like we are ungrateful. It's not like we don't appreciate what the president is doing. But what we also know is that if the president demonstrates the same level of leadership we have seen in other areas of the economy, we will see better results.
Okay. Haruna, the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, they have been at this for a very long time. And they organize, lectures to try to diagnose the situation and prescribe solutions. They say our forests are not just natural spaces. They are our last line of defense against climate change, water insecurity, and biodiversity loss. Preserving them is not optional. It is a national duty. And they demand a total repeal, that's revocation, of the LI 2462, not just the removal of Regulation 3, Sub-Regulation 2. I'll share that with all of you shortly. A firm and binding presidential policy that prohibits all mining, exploration, prospecting, and extraction in all forest reserves. Immediate termination of all mining and prospecting activities currently taking place in forest reserves.
Yes, Samson. First, I would say good morning to your cherished viewers and my colleague panelists on this particular platform and others that are joining online. I think that the Ghana Academy of
Arts and
Sciences has been very consistent in their call to ensure that our environment is being preserved. I think that they are forcefully making it now because they have not seen the needed confidence in the current administration vis-a-vis their call when they were in opposition. And Samson, if you permit me, you will recall that when the NDC was in opposition, they had made certain propositions and called the government of Akufo-Addo to execute a certain mandate that the Ghanaian public had given to him per the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. They said that they were calling on government to declare a state of emergency. And we all know the power that is trusted to His Excellency the President, then Akufo-Addo, was asked that he should declare a state of emergency. And it was within him to have done that. And this was immediate. The call was immediate that it should be called. And then again, a temporary ban on small-scale mining was also something that was called when they were in opposition. They also call for an immediate and forceful clampdown on all Galamsey activities or sites. And they also call for a repeal of the LI 2462, not to mine in the forest reserves as you have indicated. But if you ask yourself and follow the report of Asari Donko, a very renowned reporter in this particular area, I believe that he needs to get an award in that particular area, getting to those particular sites, risking his life to go through, to cover and to preserve the forest reserves for our country is very dear. You will see that, obviously, this government that we have called a settings government certainly doesn't have the gravitas to be able to hold this particular canker. And they are sitting on using the Galamsey activities in opposition to get governance, and they are virtually turning their back on us. You've asked very critical questions, and you've also asked that they have been able to do one or two things. And you've talked about how the IGP is constantly relating and reporting as to how activities are being done, how they are invading communities and sites. Samson, you agree with me that this is not the first time that our security forces have been able to go to the forest reserves, the site, Galamsey sites, to clamp them down. This is not the first time that we have banned equipments in the field. This is not the first time that a citizen of Ghana, in fact, the #1 citizen of Ghana, in the person of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, had put his own presidency on the line. So I think that these things that they are doing are things that has happened. What is stopping them from having the state of emergency? He has the power. Nobody has taken the power away from President Mahama to have a state of emergency, to ensure that what he had promised the good people of Ghana is what he actually going to carry out.
The public's natural expectation will be that you will rather be agreeing with them why they should not be declaring a state of emergency, because you know the reasons why it should not be declared. When it was called on, it was demanded, Akufo-Addo refused.
And the person that called for it saw that it was necessary. So God being so good, he has given him the mandate. The person decides not to do it. The person tells you that he's going to repeal a certain law whilst in opposition. And they're very clear in their minds.
That's right.
Very clear in their mind. You see, His Excellency, the current president, did not come by default. He has become a president before. You know that he has traveled all that line. He has been an MP. Some say he has been an assemblyman, which I cannot confirm. If that is true, from assemblyman to an MP, a deputy minister, vice president, president, former president, and now president. So he's very clear in his mind. He's been able to know and travel through all the development stages of our country. And he clearly understands what the law is. So he comes in, and certainly he refused to repeal, because repeal is repeal. It is not amendment. He goes and to amend a certain portion, as you have indicated, Regulation 3(2) of that particular act. And that clearly defies that logic. Why are you not doing what you told the people of Ghana? You promised them. They gave you the opportunity. You use it to win political power. And you come in and you have to fold your arms. It is true that I agree with Prof. that if he has to travel out of the country or run away from this country, it's because of what? Unregulated or illegal mining activities that is not done, supported by law. And I think that when he says that, maybe many people may not understand why he's saying so. You see, we all drink water. Nobody can stay alive without water. Why would we be drinking water that is contaminated, that contains a lot of heavy metals, that you take it into your system and you cannot survive with that? A certain government, a certain party comes in, and this is certainly what they want to give to us. So they are not prepared. They have gotten the power, and to hell with the people of Ghana. And environmental protection and water bodies. You know how they were coming with water, packing them, and then repackaging them and putting labels on them. Now, today, it is not even water. If you ask Asari Donko, it is mad. You can't get the water. The water is gone. The excavators, even those that they have even vanished. Where have they gone? I think that the NDC need to answer more questions because God has given them the opportunity and Ghanaians are seeing their results, and that is what they are making.
Okay. I'll move on. I wanted to say something because we have to stay factual when we make these claims about excavators have vanished, the water has become mud. We have to be factual about what we say. Let me go to Dr. Osakwapo. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Now, I read a part of the open letter that was written to the president by the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, and they say among other things that a forest reserve is not a mine in waiting. Forest reserves exist to protect biodiversity, ensure clean water, regulate climate, and preserve the balance of life. Authorizing mining in such areas defies both logic and the very purpose for which these reserves were created. They say the LI 2462 must be repealed in full because it is unconstitutional. The law gives power to the minister and president that properly belong to the Minerals Commission, violating clear constitutional boundaries. It is legally flawed. The minister who introduced this LI delegated powers he did not have. The president cannot legally be granted mining approval powers in forest reserves without Parliament's explicit direction and only on the advice of the Minerals Commission under Article 2692 of the Constitution. It will destroy our environment. They say Ghana already suffers from polluted rivers, degraded lands, and disappearing forests. Weak mining enforcement has left a trail of devastation. Allowing mining in forest reserves will only make this worse. It breaks international promises. Ghana has committed to global climate and biodiversity goals under the Paris Agreement, the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, and others. The LI moves us in the opposite direction. And finally, they say it puts future generations at risk. Forests store carbon, protect against floods and droughts, and provide food, water, and medicine. Once again, they are gone forever. Once gone, they are gone forever. And that's where they're now asking for the president to do three straight things. To issue a clear and binding policy that permanently bans all mining in forest reserves. Repeal the LI entirely without delay. And finally, for Ghanaians to speak up, stand up, and defend their natural heritage. Yes, Prof.
Yes, Samson. Good morning to you. Good morning to the co-panelist. Good morning to your viewers as well. It's this Galamsey issue, to borrow your term on Newsfile, continues to be quite a vexed matter. And every so often we have, particularly our two main political parties, put out ideas, solutions, ways in which they believe that you can deal with the Galamsey menace. Most of the time in opposition, their proposed ideas seem to be a lot more forceful than when they're in power. I know when you follow the conversations, they do recognize that there are also some quote-unquote political risk in dealing with Galamsey. But you don't have a choice but to deal with this, because ultimately the consequences of this issue will not discriminate by party colors. What I find instructive in all of this conversation is, and I wrote about this just before the 2024 election, as citizens kept increasing the pressure and more demands on ending Galamsey. One of the things I argued is that the demands of citizens were quite at odds with what the political parties in their manifestos were promising. Any careful analysis of the manifestos of the two main political parties in the lead up to 2024, you would notice that, in my opinion, there was a deliberate attempt not to create a picture of a heavy-handed approach to dealing with Galamsey versus what citizens were clamoring for is, a more forceful, heavy-handed approach. If you look at all of the proposals, anywhere between government support for responsible artisanal small-scale mining, if you look at some of the ideas they shared around greater regulatory oversight, improved practices for artisanal small-scale mining, it was this conscious attempt not to create this impression that we are either going to ban it or we're going to be so heavy-handed, because nobody wanted to lose the politics of the issue. So until such time that our two main political parties, in my opinion, can forge and build some consensus around how you deal with the politics of it, you would get this constant trading of you're not doing anything, you're not doing anything. Now, on the question of the LI, if you look at President Mahama's update at the end of the 120-day social contract, I can understand what he put out that day, right? That it appears to me that what he saw in the LI was this perverse incentive that grants the president or the minister this power to issue licenses or grant permission for people to mine in forest reserve. So what he said on that 120 days is amend the LI, remove that perverse incentive. But he didn't leave it there. He also said, now amend the Minerals and Mining Act 703 and ban any kind of mining in forest reserve. Put those two together and you get the removal of this idea of we can go into our forest reserves and mine. So I understood that and I can understand that if he puts those two together, he believes it addresses the issue, except that the politics of it does not allow him to take that approach of amending the LI and going to Act 703 to ban mining in forest, because what would constantly come up is you promised to totally repeal the LI and you have no option but to repeal the LI, even though I believe that going the route that he's proposing can get at the twin problem that he's trying to address.
Have you seen signs of sincere commitment in getting rid of this?
I mean, you've seen some initiatives at trying to address this issue. What I say is that if for nothing at all, the president as candidate in 2024, his party put out some very specific things in terms of how they can fight Galamsey. If for nothing at all, just take all of those ideas. I categorized them into greater, there were things about greater regulatory oversight, improved practices, government support. If nothing at all, take those proposals from the manifesto and show that one after the other, you're trying to roll it out. Because after all, as a candidate, those are the ways that you promised you can fight Galamsey and fight it effectively. So if you want to show the public that commitment, in addition to the things that citizens are clamoring for, just start rolling out those policies. For me, that is what would show the Ghanaian people that the commitment to fight Galamsey was not just based on political expediency whilst in opposition, but really there is a true commitment to deal with it.
In 30 seconds, must the citizens reason with the government when it promises to revoke a particular law and now decides to amend it rather than revoke?
So, as I have said, I believe that the way President Mahama on his 120 days said, amend and then also deal with the ban on forest mining reserve in the Mining and Minerals Act 703. For me, it's an approach that I am willing to reason with the government about. However, repeal is repeal. And since that is what you promised, citizens have every right to demand that that is what you do. And at some point, I think that is what the president would have.
So regardless, the citizens must not take any excuse for non-repeal, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. I'm coming to Shamima, and then I will end up with Reverend Father Michael Kweku, who also, when the Catholic Archdiocese of Accra went on the streets to demonstrate against the ecocide, he was the man leading and speaking for the demonstrators. I was one of those demonstrators. Now, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey. Well, let me give you an idea. It is a coalition, a very formidable coalition. Over 20 different serious organizations are in there. You have the Media Coalition Against Galamsey, you have One Ghana Movement, you have Ghana CSO platforms on SDGs, you have BRACE, you have CASA Initiative Ghana Stakeholder Engagement Forum, you have the General Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, you have the Peasant Farmers Association, Ghana Institution of Engineering and Technology Ghana, Graduate Students Association of Ghana, New Media Association of Ghana, Ghana Institute of Architects, Institute of Public Relations, Ghana Institute of Foresters, Africa Center for Energy Policy, Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, Research Scientists Association, University Teachers Association, UTAG, Ghana Mine Workers Union, and the list goes on. I suppose that government takes them seriously. They held a press conference. They commended the IGP and his team for stepping up efforts to combat illegal mining. However, they asked that there's a need for clear enforcement and compliance regime that will fix the cracks that needs to be fixed. They say that the government made a solemn vow to the people of Ghana to revoke the LI 2462. That's what it must do, scrap it entirely. They say if mining in forest reserve is haram to this government, then the government must prove it by that repeal. It must arm our officers to deal ruthlessly with and apprehend offenders. It must end the impunity. It says the government must prosecute politically exposed persons engaging in illegal mining, and they point to specific persons. We understand that some investigation will go on. They say gun-wielding gangs now operate with terrifying boldness, and if this government does not act decisively, no one is safe. We saw Hanabisu go in there, and the story must only happen in a stateless, place, not in a country with police. They say a state of emergency will empower the security forces to nip this emerging national security threat in the bud. If this is not done urgently, the repercussions will be dire. What do you say?
All right. Good morning to you, Samson, and very good morning to all of our viewers. I would like to start, first of all, by just making some preliminary remarks before I come to your question. I mean, Prof, all of you have been real citizens over the years in shaping, the destiny of this country. And I think that's what we want. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama continues to invite citizens to contribute their quota towards, the growth and sustainability of this country. But I'd like to disagree with you most respectfully when you say that you're calling for a ban, possible ban on the gold from Ghana because it is blood gold. Prof, with all due respect, you do know that Ghana has been mining for several centuries, in fact, and decades, and there are legitimate mining concerns in the country and the contribution of mining to our economy, and especially even now with the gold board, within 4 or 5 months of trying to regularize the sector, we are already speaking about $3 billion that has come to shore up, our reserves and also contribute to the gains we are seeing in our economy and the stabilization of our economy. So to make a blanket statement that there should be a possible ban of the gold from Ghana, I think it's unfair to the country itself, and it's also unfair to all the legal and sustainable mining companies that we're still, working with. There was also the call that has been made by the CSO for some specific actions to be taken. What I'm hearing everyone say is not that this government hasn't shown commitment to act and is actually acting. What I'm hearing us say is that we need to do more. And as a government, we hear that. And we will do more as we are doing more. Within the corridors of government, it is a state of emergency with regards to the issue of Galamsey and with regards to the issue of regulating mining in forest reserves. And so there needs to be that distinction. When we are speaking about Galamsey and illegal mining, it is already illegal. So we do not need a legislation to enforce that which is already illegal, because it is already illegal mining. So that distinction requires to be made so we can clarify the issues and have germane conversations around them. Every government, like other companies of growing concern, requires what they would describe as a social license to operate. That social license is engineered through trust of the people in the leaders and trust of the leaders in the people, that the people would work together with the leadership of the day in solving the very complex problems that mitigate against the advancement and development of that society. For the NDC government, under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, he came into office at a time that Ghana had really reached very low levels in terms of citizens' trust in the ability of government to solve their problems, ease their affairs, and create an enabling environment for citizens to live a life of dignity whilst protecting the environment. So it is true that in the lead up to the 2024 elections, the NDC, like many well-meaning Ghanaians, and it is not a position we have run away from, we still embrace that position. In the lead up to the election, Samson, many Ghanaians, including the NDC then, agreed that there was palpable non-commitment on the side of the administration to fight Galamsey. I take these descriptions from your own staff, Erastus, who says severally that by 2023, 2024, there was no fight anymore. It was a free-for-all matter, and there was really no government commitment, there was no leadership commitment, and the entire fight had failed. We had arrived at this position after several interventions.
I think the people
to fight Galamsey.
The people are not oblivious of all that, and they are not interested in the history. They are interested in the present. They are interested in the promise. Keep the promise.
So
is that difficult to keep?
It is not.
So what's the thing?
And I think that
you promised a repeal. Why have you gone to amend?
So if you allow me to lay the foundation of
this
argument,
actually was supposed to be a brief session for the other issues. So if you can go straight to the jugular.
People to
go straight to the jugular.
So allow me to
tell
make
us
my
about
argument.
Tell us about why you have not repealed, but you are doing an amendment.
Why until you understand where we are. Because on this platform, we have been told that we made this promise. Why did we make this promise? Because at the time, we believed there was no commitment. Just as all of you believed, there had been over 5 various actions over the period of the 8-year administration, including Operation Galamsey. A lot of money had gone into the fight against Galamsey. We had ministers of state tell us that their attempts to fight the menace had been met with frustrations at the highest level. I speak here of Professor Frimpong Boateng. It is not fair to create an impression that we arrived at the position for a declaration of a state of emergency based on no substance. There were real substance.
Everybody knows that.
And so when there was a change of government, what we are now measuring, what is the commitment of this new government to depart away from the inactions of the previous government? And that is where our government...
You don't seem to appreciate the breach of trust.
I think that is unfair to say.
You don't appreciate the breach of trust.
I totally agree. And I'm here because I totally...
That you make me a promise. Vote for me.
Yes.
Vote for me. Because it could be that
to fight Galamsey.
Okay, so wait. It could be that I voted for your party. And the reason I voted for you would have been that I want Galamsey resolved, and you gave me a solution to resolve it.
Yes.
I didn't vote for your party, but that's a point I'm making. Some people would have done that. Then you come, next day you are saying, the thing you promised, you are not doing it. That's all we are asking. What is it?
So maybe it is a matter of understanding of what doing is. And I think at this point, that's what we'd like to invite. Would like to invite all of us, CSO citizens, to hear each other as we speak. Because Samson, your own Erastus Asare Donko, even as he continues on this advocacy, concedes that there is marked commitment in comparison. So we are looking at which set of leaders is showing commitment to act. In what ways are they acting? Yes, we had also campaigned on the back of the repeal of LI 2462. Look, it is the New Patriotic Party that banned mining in forest reserves and illegal mining and made claims of Galamsey as illegal, made those determinations. It is they themselves that also gave power through the parent law, the Minerals and Mining Act, and the LI that enforced the primary provisions of the Act, that gave power to the executive president to be able to release forest reserves for mining. And so when we came in, you are a lawyer. You know that with the matter of mining in forest reserves, there are companies that have legal licenses that were given to them in the past administration. The NDC, under His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has not given a single license to any company, whether duly registered company, to mine in forest reserve. We have not done that. We have taken steps because of the legal implications of abrogating through the action of a repeal of a regulation, which will now create a lacuna in the system and allow for those who already have legal licenses to operate in forest reserves. Samson, you are aware that companies like Newmont obtained legal licenses under the erstwhile administration, and they are mining sustainably in forest reserves. So we agree that mining in forest reserves into the nearest future is not the path we as a government want to take. So how do we resolve it? Do we repeal the LI and create this lacuna, whereas there are companies with a mandate to mine in those forest reserves? What is the implication for judgment debt Should we not sit around the table with these companies and negotiate and let them know where we are heading to as a country? In the meantime, what are we doing to recover those forests that have been besieged? 8 out of 9 forests, as we speak today, have been moved from the red zone. I have been told in reading the approach to fighting, this Galamsey menace and illegal mining in forest reserves.
The Akufo-Addo government, we all fault for not doing much. Had presented and started the process to revoke the LI they had passed in 2022. And you took the campaign and said, we will revoke it. It's just too late. They are just trying to do it to buy votes.
Yes.
Then you get voted for. Now you are giving an excuse.
I'm giving a reason. And as a lawyer, you should understand.
So does it mean that you didn't think through it when you promised the people that you will revoke?
It was
when the Akufo-Addo government had already tabled the process to revoke the law.
Parliament.
Yes.
It was not a completed process. Samson, is it fair to the people of Ghana that it would take 8 years to come to the point after we had been told of the clear complicity on the side of those who were now purporting to be wanting to deal with the situation? 8 good years. Is it your considered opinion that we should have allowed for them to continue in office, given the levels of deterioration? As we speak, just yesterday, the IGP had made some raids. We have arrested over 80 individuals around the issue of legal mining. And I'll just again repeat for the benefit of all fair-minded Ghanaians, because this country is what we all have. We all are in it, and we're all concerned about the devastation to the environment, the devastation to our water bodies. So what was the proposed approach to dealing with the issue of the repeal of LI 2462 was to remove the power of the executive presidency. It was a low-hanging fruit, giving the appreciation. Look, we had to come to this point based on engagement. Remember that we were not in office. So we couldn't have engaged these mining companies to understand where they were with respect to their appetite to work with us, even as an action to repeal the law would have had consequences.
You're saying that the professors at the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences...
Don't put words in my mouth. You can ask a question without saying that I'm saying.
You're saying that they don't know what they're about when they insist that an entire repeal is what is required. You are saying that the Ghana coalition against Galamsey.
Yes.
And I was deliberate in listing the membership to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That they say, insist that an entire revocation is what it ought to be.
And I'm saying, and government is saying that let's sit around the table and let's agree on the consequences of these actions that are being determined.
You made a promise, keep it. That's what they're saying.
A promise, keeping some promises have consequences on you and I. And you are a lawyer, and I keep repeating it, because you know what it means to vary an existing contract.
So the promise was a deceit.
So how could it have been a deceit? How could it? The promise that was that we as a government would fight Galamsey. And the call, you see, distinguish between the promise and the commitment of the NDC regime and the calls of the NDC regime at a time where there was obvious evidence of no commitment. Please let us be fair.
How about the state of emergency, the declaration of a state of emergency on areas where Galamsey is threatening water bodies and the forest?
Are you saying?
How about that? They're insisting on all of that too.
Yes, and we are hearing them at a very deep level. And the engagements will continue, because we need to present the truest picture to them and let them know what we have done as our own urgent actions to curtail further deterioration.
Do you think the government should look at these people, should look at Ghanaians and apologize for making those promises, because they have you have now realized that it is not what you thought?
What is not what we thought?
Repeal and state of emergency.
You see, we speak of these actions as if they are off the table. I've explained to you that in the interim, whilst we amend LI 2462 to curtail the most problematic provisions in that LI, we have been advised by the Attorney General that he is now going to take steps to amend the parent law, the Minerals and Mining Act, to ensure that we make clear declarations of mining in forest reserves as being illegal.
Okay.
In the meantime, we must engage with all the mining companies that have legal licenses granted to them through the past administration to sit around the table and agree.
Okay.
Whilst we do that, we must present the picture and the options we have for deploying some of these specific recommendations and what it would mean to the public purse.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, let me add, please. May I just wrap up? Please allow me. But this was supposed to be
our preliminary
Samson, I beg your
issue,
pardon to
and
let
then
me
we
add
go to
and give some results.
I've seen all of you putting up your hands. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Can I just say something briefly as a way of conclusion? I want to assure Ghanaians that as we speak, the government of Ghana, through the IGP, who is really now the lead in terms of fighting the Galamsey menace, has impounded 1,250 excavators at our ports. We are working with DVLA to track all of these excavators because obviously there are supply and demand issues. So we are trying to deal with those blockages. What are these excavators coming to do? And if you do not have proof that you're bringing these excavators in for construction work, you don't get to clear these excavators. Meanwhile, DVLA is working to track existing excavators in the system. We're using technology as we speak, live technology, flying drones in forest areas to ensure that we capture activity in real time. The government of the NDC did make some specific promises regarding banning on mining in forest reserves, as distinct from the general Galamsey menace that borders on illegal mining.
Thank you.
No one who is really, and in fact, with the coloration, there is no coloration to breach. If any member, and I can say it for a fact, that at the highest level, decisions have been made that no member of the NDC found in any illegal mining activity will, under the guise of being a member of this government, go scot-free.
Thank you.
No member of this party.
Thank you.
And that is
Hold on.
to all members of our party.
Yes, Sharima, thank you
There is
very
real
much.
commitment.
We have one more guest who has not been heard. We have one more guest who has not been heard.
For all of us.
Thank you. We have one more guest who has not been heard. But Prof, I'm holding you to 1 minute.
Yes, I mean, because of the intervention my good sister made about the blood gold and all of that, I'm only telling you where we are heading towards. That increasingly, the world will boycott our gold. It is not surprising to me that the bulk of our gold today is exported to United Arab Emirates. And they rather try to more or less like polish it and export to the rest of the world.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't matter how much gold is bringing in terms of revenue. The consequences in terms of the environment cannot be situated side by side the resources we are getting from gold.
Existential threat, we always say.
Yes. And again, just to state the fact.
I said a minute.
Yeah, a minute.
Right.
He never said that he's proposing that Ghana's gold should. He was saying that where we will be getting to. And again, Shamima just ended on a point that, but we are all on the platform. This is an authoritative.
It was written on the door.
It's not about written.
Quickly.
You see how she was struggling. This is how governance. This is how governance. I see. We're quiet.
You don't have a substantive.
I don't have. But you see, you need to. This is an authoritative platform. It says that they are not going to condone and allow NDC people to go scot-free.
The president
his deputy general secretary said that they are going to send away MPP people who have license to even mine and put their NDC people there.
He said it.
He said it on several media platforms.
I've not heard it. I'm sorry.
Yes, but you can check. You can check. Okay. What the NDC should do, and President Mahama, is to apologize to the people of Ghana for deceit.
Okay.
Clearly,
thank you.
They should be apologizing to us.
Thank you for that. Well, preliminary issues sometimes can turn into, because it's a substantive issue, sometimes ourselves, we get fatigued in discussing this, this matter, because we have discussed it over and over and over, but the result is not commensurate even to an entire national, campaign. the Democracy Hub people, Oliver and his friends, are scheduling another demonstration in is this September?
All those actions
over
are
this.
welcome.
Okay, so let me go now to the Zoom back again to Reverend Father Michael Kweku, who is the Director of Governance, Justice and Peace, Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. Thanks for joining us. When the Catholic Church here in Accra led a demonstration about this, you were speaking and joining civil society like the Coalition Against Galamsey to demand, the ban, the state of emergency and all of that. How do you feel?
Well, since the problem is still persisting, our feelings haven't changed. Rather unfortunate feelings and rather unflattering statistics, persisting about the problem. You see, I personally, but also the citizens of Ghana, and not least the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, would rather not condone a political he said, she said attitude towards the problem. Because the problem goes beyond mere political expediency or mere, strategies put forward. The problem has to be articulated so that we will find the solution to it. The problem is multi-headed. Its effect is cataclysmic. What we inherited as a garden is gradually turning into a desert. We are gradually finding that the songs that we used to sing, romanticize about the beauty of Ghana and its land and its natural resources, can no longer be sustained because somehow we either desire a certain result, but our actions and efforts towards resolving it don't commensurate to what we desire. It is important, therefore, that we unveil the problem and then go all out. Explanations are important, as Shamima has said, and my brother from the MPP has also said. But we are not without disregarding the value of the explanations. It is important to see how devastating and how life-threatening this problem is for all of us. In fact, it is the reason why personally I respect the theme for the upcoming National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving the President has afforded us to it is to reset our minds, to reflect and to renew. He begins by reflect, reset, and renew. And I think that it is important that as Ghanaians, regardless of our political biases and affiliations, that we are able to reflect on this menace and then reset our minds and attitudes and not allow ourselves the opportunity or any inch to give explanations, but just to go straight to the problem, renewing our own selves. So on that score, I give 100 to the president that we have to do this, but no explanations are acceptable in the face of such huge life-destroying problem.
You are with the Catholic Bishops Conference. I suppose you are also getting tired because I can't count the number of times the Catholic Bishops Conference have held meetings, issued statements, and saying that this must stop. The Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, Ken Ashigbe and his group, They say gun-wielding gangs now operate with terrifying boldness. And if this government does not act decisively, no one is safe. Reverend, we had Dr. Hannah Louisa Bisu, the administrator of the Ghana Minerals Development Fund, faced with a harrowing ordeal during an anti-Galamsey operation at Sobinso in the Ashanti region. She and her team and journalists were literally held hostage while accompanying a police task force that arrested some 24 suspects, including 14 Chinese nationals. Her team was ambushed. They were taken hostage literally. The police that was supposed to help them were rather now seeking to help the gang that had sought an intervention to release the people who had been arrested. Doesn't this give, send shivers down your spine that we are heading for very dangerous times, and the call for a ban, the call for a state of emergency in those areas is urgent?
Samson, I would say we are heading towards the very dangerous place is the understatement of the century. I think we're already there. I think we're already there. We only have to look at the statistics, health statistics, look at our own water bodies destroyed, forests destroyed. The water authorities will tell us about the turbidity levels of our water and all of that. So we are already there. The problem is not tomorrow. The problem is now. The destruction and devastation is not tomorrow. It is now. So as I say, the effort to fight this cannot be romanticized. We cannot negotiate with it.
Okay.
We have to put aside all our biases, as I have said, political or otherwise, and just see how this problem is so overwhelming that it must take every effort. I am a student of Emil Durkheim on this, that since the problems of society come from society, the solution to the problems must come from society.
Okay. Reverend Michael, thank you very much. But because you mentioned also the National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving for the 1st of July, just tell us something briefly about it before we let go of you. Representing the Catholic Bishops' Conference on the organizing committee, it is both for Muslims and for Christians as well. And you hoping that it can be one of the ways we can set our mind, renew our minds. Tell us just briefly about it.
Okay, thank you. On the 25th of April this year, His Excellency the President commissioned a planning committee for the National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving based on his own promise that this would be done because he believes that what Ghana enjoys, regardless of our problems, is nothing short of divine favor, and therefore it is only fitting that we spend some time in reflection, we spend some time in prayer, we spend some time in thanksgiving, so that having prayed, having reflected, we will be able to then reset our minds and our attitudes for a renewed way of looking at how Ghana moves forward in prosperity and towards the common good. So on the 1st of July, which is itself a public holiday, our republic holiday, there will be two services, one Islamic, one Christian. The Christian one begins at 8 a.m. and will be held at the forecourt of the State House. And then at that event, the guest preacher will be His Eminence Cardinal Peter Pia Texan, who is coming down from Rome to join us. And then at 12:30, we shall all gather at the National Mosque at Kanda, where we shall have the Islamic service. And we've invited everyone, every Ghanaian is invited. But the celebrations will not only happen in Accra. We'll have simultaneous celebrations across the country, across the 16 regional capitals and also the district capitals. So it's a day to reflect, it's a day to reset, it's a day to renew for the prosperity of Ghana.
Thank you very much. Reverend Father Michael Kweku is Director of Governance, Justice and Peace, Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference. He is the Bishops' Conference representative on the organization of the 1st July National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving, something that President Mahama says should become a annual feature of our calendar, and he has some hopes that we can use some of these vehicles of prayer and gathering to try to change our mindsets because about things like Galamsey. We'll take a break and return to the NPP's flag bearer race. The date has been announced, the 31st of January 2026. There will be the flag bearership race, and so far as we know, Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia, Kennedy Japan, we have Yao Osei Educhung, we also have the Brian Champong, the former Minister for Agric and in previous other portfolios, who are lacing their boots for that, and the accusations about this being made to favor one against the other. We'll find out about that. But briefly, a couple of your messages so that when we return, we just go straight to the MPP's issue. PK from Elembele says that on the fight against Galamsey, so far the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Boa, is doing very well and proactive to combat the Galamsey canker. So far, 8 out of 9 red zone forest reserves recovered. This fight cannot be done just overnight, but it is a clarion call for us to accept the need to preserve our forests, to ensure oxygen, to sustain life, the need for safe water for life. Entry, Boesiako says, didn't the NDC government revoke some licenses issued by the NPP government when they came into office? Did they not worry about possible judgment debts? It is interesting. David says that, I feel sad when these politicians talk about Galamsey on the standards of doing only better rather than any drastic action to deal with this issue. Is this the years gone by objective? Shamima. Okay, is this the years gone by objective, Shamima? Now talking like this? Oh, Fred says, playing on our intelligence. Shamima can do better. It's just a breach of the social contract. Simple and unfortunate. Musa Abatoa says that whether you call it a repeal or an amendment, it is mere semantics. The real issue is the intent and the outcome. What matters is what we are trying to achieve. Unfortunately, people like Haruna Mohammed seem more focused on scoring political points than genuinely fighting the canker. And finally, Kingsley says that I don't know whether the state fears it may not be able to overcome the forces in the forest reserve because there are various forces in the forest reserve, including mercenaries. Revocation is therefore not the way forward. However, there must be state of emergency. So he explains that the LI 2426 is simply to regulate activities in forest reserves once permits have been given. Once there is no mineral right given by the Minerals Commission, there is nothing to be done in a forest reserves. So what has been done is something that he endorses. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And we are moving straight to the NPP's matters. But over a long period, when the discussion about Galamsey and this LI is had, we never really show people what the law is. I'm going to read that law to you, and then we'll move on. So the LI 2462, the problematic provision is Regulation 3. And Regulation 3 reads, prohibited areas. So 3.1. A person shall not issue a license or permit to any person to undertake mining activity, including exploration activity, in the following areas. 1. A globally significant biodiversity area, a protected provenance area, an institutional research plot, a hill sanctuary, a high conservation value area, a seed orchard, swamp sanctuary, plantation sites, and cultural sites. Now here is the problem. We introduce a 2, which says, despite paragraph A of sub-regulation 1, the President may, subject to Article 268 of the Constitution, give approval in writing to a mining company to undertake mining activity in a globally significant biodiversity area in the national interest. This is what brought the problem. So what has been done now with the amendment that has occurred is that it has removed this presidential power to grant persons the right to mine. And guess what the penalty was if you infringe this law? It was just you going to prison for not less than 6 months and not more than 1 month for destroying the environment. Can you imagine? Anyway,
let's come to
let's go to NPP's presidential primaries, which has been slated to come off in January. So what is the problem? Let me begin with Dr. Osai Kwapong. Some say this is a masterstroke. Their party is literally in shambles, they admit. A powerful party in government with good numbers in parliament, a supermajority, now went to a hung parliament, and then suddenly they can only boast of 88 MPs. And now they have to face elections, having lost with such a humongous defeat. We're told almost never in the history of the country. Doing this early in the manner they are seeking to do it, good or bad?
Let me phrase it as concerning. Concerning only because, this won't be the first time that they are holding their primaries 2 years before the presidential election. I think in the 2000 election, they held a primary in 1998. The 2012 election, I think by 2010, they had held a primary. 2016, they held a primary in 2014. So an early primary is not something that is new to the party. I think where my concern comes in is that post the election and the formation of the Professor Michael Quay committee to look into, the reasons for the loss and make recommendations. I was on a platform once with Mr. Richard Ahiagba, who talked about the fact that whilst they won't make the report public, the committee has made some recommendations for reforms, etc., some particular issues that the party needs to address. One of which was, the only one that he mentioned was the expansion of the Electoral College. So they set up another group, I think, to study the recommendations and then come up with the way forward. So where I find it concerning is that I was expecting that whatever those recommendations are, they will be studied. They will develop a roadmap for moving ahead in responding to those recommendations for the necessary changes and reforms, get that in place, resolve all of those challenges, and then start moving ahead with electing executives for the party and then ultimately electing their flag bearer. This seems to be doing it the other way around. And that's where, for me, my concern is that why now, before enacting the necessary reforms as per the recommendations, whatever they were in the Professor Michael Quay report?
Have you heard some explanations that say that the process is going to be costly, it will be very divisive, they're already down there, and this approach appears to be one that will hold them together so that at least each hopeful, Baumia, Kennedy, Yahweh Duchum, Kobne Japan, he's also in, is it? Interested, is he? Okay, well, Brian Champong. Each person needs to spend in excess of about 40 million at least Ghana cedis just for the internal processes of choosing the constituency or electoral area people. And all of these will be seeking to sponsor people who favor them. So you are going to elect your flag bearer, and they are all doing this for their parochial interests. In the end, one person is chosen, and the rest cannot seem to work with that person. But this gives them the opportunity, if they have any money, they will channel it to the party to help the reorganization processes. And the election process does not leave you with, my people did not win, or something of the sort.
So I've heard that, and also in following the conversations, particularly on social media, between the two main candidates, right? When I look at those who are supporting the Honorable Kennedy Paul and those who are supporting the former vice president, when I look at sometimes the rhetoric, some of the exchanges, how intense it gets, it suggests to me that one of the things that the party is trying to address with this early primary is, let's get this over with sooner rather than later, and then we can spend the rest of the time rebuilding, forging that unity that we need in going into the 2028 election. But an early primary for me is not necessarily the solution to party unity. What becomes, what is critical for me is how you manage and deal with grievances, especially post-primary grievances that emerge. That for me is what is critical, because at the end of the day...
So they are seeking to cure part of that with this solution. Don't you see it, as some of them argue, and I've heard Paul Ademochiri actually give an expansive explanation as to why this is the master stroke. They are going to go into these regional or executive elections. Each of these hopefuls will begin to sponsor someone, party chairman, regional chairman, constituency that. They will begin to sponsor people. Then they go through this process. Some of these people will lose. They will not win. Then they begin to say, Baumia's candidate lost here. Brian Champon's candidate won here. Then, when it gets to the flag bearership, you have a region that is controlled by a Brian Champon chairman going to be part of the supervision of the flag bearership for people that he has his favorites in. They say that will even divide the party the more. You don't see that?
No, but Samson, who is to say that if you hold an early primary and the losing candidate may not feel a certain, may not feel aggrieved in a way that when you start having these other elections for party officials, right, that they may still choose to sponsor their own candidate to a regional or to a constituency or to a national position.
What you understand is that the natural thing that happens is that once they pick a flag bearer, everybody gravitates to the flag bearer. And then the elections in the grassroots level does not become as acrimonious, and because these other candidates or hopefuls will all rally behind one person who will become the leader. So there won't be divisions down there.
Well, I mean, that's one plausible argument. But as I also keep saying, we have also seen what some of these intra-party elections have produced in terms of the acrimony, the divisions, and all of that. So whilst there is some merit to that argument, I, again, just worry that for everything that was said about there is the need for certain important reforms to be made post the 2024 election. Unless, of course, the reforms are inconsequential to strengthening the party's structures, strengthening the party in going into 2028. But from at least from what was shared publicly in terms of some things need to be done, I'm just worried that those things haven't been done and you are going into a primary against the backdrop of those challenges.
They haven't said they have jettisoned those. They are going to do those things, but they will do them at the right time. They're going to have a meeting of some council, and then subsequently, is it in July, they'll have one meeting. Yes, they'll have one meeting to trash out certain things that have to be taken care of. The constitutional reforms that has to be done at the apex, that is the annual gathering of all who matter in the party. They say that everything rises and falls on leadership. So pick the arrowhead. Do you buy that?
Well, like I said, I mean, hey, it's the party gets to do what they believe is in the best interests of the party. But as I keep saying, for me, the kinds of things that would produce party unity and help the party to address whatever challenges that the party needs to address, in my opinion, an early primary is not the answer to that. Okay,
please hold on for me. I'll return to you to give us, your idea of the hopefuls. For at this time, there's no candidate. They are hopefuls. Of course, Dr. Bawumia is contending, and we had some MPs go to meet with him and endorse him. We are told there were 60 of them. There's argument about whether they were 30 plus, they were 40, or they were actually 60. And Ken too is meeting with, is it former DCs or something of the sort, and all sorts of calculations coming in, everybody seeking to own a particular turf. Yao Osei Educhum, who had interest in becoming running mate to Dr. Bawumia, is now thrown himself in there. He's going to contest. Brian Echampong, who also had interest in becoming vice presidential candidate, also throws himself in there. And some suggest he is the dark horse. And there are claims that perhaps he comes in, he and Educhum come in so that if you don't want Bawumia and Ken is also not really the person you feel we should present to the people, then you have a middle ground, Brian or Educhum. We'll return to you for that. But since Haruna is here, Haruna, concerns are being raised, and I'm actually being told here that the early primaries and the reforms are not mutually exclusive, nor are they necessarily sequential. This is coming from a high up in the NPP. Explain to us, why are you doing things upside down? Nyaho Tamaklo also sends a message and says what you are doing is the wrong way, rather. It says that, I read just the last bit of a long letter he has sent. He says, I insist that the current leadership responsible for the party's current state cannot be trusted to provide a credible election outcome. They lack the legitimacy and moral authority to elect a leader for a party aiming to win elections in 2028. It is imperative that a more credible, inclusive process and one that respect of the NPP's party constitution is adopted to ensure that the party's future, success. What do you say?
I guess that's a former member of our party, that is Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. He has just sent a long message to you. We appreciate him. Dog, good morning. Samson, I would give you the background as to where we came from and how we arrived at this particular position at the last National Council meeting on the 17th of June. Samson, you agree that after we lost the elections in 2024, on the 2nd of January, we had a National Council NEC meeting, and we took a decision to put together a National Council committee headed by Professor Mike Aaron Okwe to look at two issues. One is to look at why we lost the election, and second is to look at possible reforms or constitutional amendment to our constitution that will help to reshape a regrouping of the party towards the elections in 2028 and beyond. Professor Michael Okwe's committee went to all the 276 constituencies and listened and also received recommendations from other prominent members of the party and other stakeholders. They put together a report. They presented the report to the National Council, and on the 16th of April, the National Council took decision upon listening to Professor Michael Okwe's committee summary report and recommendations, put together a committee for amendment of portions that has been raised in Professor Michael Okwe's committee's report with regards to possible areas of restructuring and amendment, and also referred that committee to the 2021 uncompleted recommendations. So all these were put together, and on the instructions of the General Secretary, Article 19 of our party's constitution was put to bear, where members of the party were called to submit proposals to the committee, and this committee was headed by lawyer Frank Davis. This committee, on the 17th of June, came before National Council, and before their report, before their formation, there was that debate of early Congress to elect a flag bearer, which was captured in Professor Mike Okwe's report, that we should elect our flag bearer early. So this was one of the recommendations which was captured in Professor Mike Okwe's report, of which during the thank you tour, we made these representations to the members of the party. And all the recommendations that came through Professor Mike Okwe's report came from the very people that we have been talking to, and that is the members of the party and leaders of the party at the constituency, electoral area, polling stations, regional, and to the national level. So these recommendations were referred back, and these confirmations of recommendations of early Congress was recommended by our members of the party. So it was something that was conclusive and decided by the grassroots of the party, which is not in contention. So this matter was put before the amendment committee, and the amendment committee in their recommendation singled out that the presidential primaries should be conducted early enough that kura, if it is not done by March of 2026, it should be done. So we went into the constitution of the New Patriotic Party, and in Article 13.1, if you permit me, I read, the elections of the party's presidential candidate shall be held not later than 24 months from the date of the national elections. And in this case, the national elections is 2028 elections. The date and venue for the election shall be decided by the National Council. Shall, it is not a may, shall be decided. It means that the National Council is cloned with the power and seized with the authority to decide the date and venue for the conduct of presidential primaries at any point in time, despite the fact that there is a definitive definition of not later than 24 months. So I proceed. Shall decide by the National Council, provided, however, that the National Council may, on appropriate occasions, vary the date. Meaning the National Council can decide that elections of the flag bearer can be conducted 1 year to the election,
can be conducted.
Read the first provision. Read the first provision again.
It says not later than 24 months. But the National Council can vary.
Can vary what?
Can vary the date in appropriate occasions. They can vary the date. So it means they can take a decision. They can do it 3 years. They can do it 2 years. They can do it. So in these particular circumstances, the National Council, based on the recommendations of Frank Davis Committee, took a decision. And Frank Davis Committee said that it must be taken on the very day that report is presented to the National Council.
Do you realize that this was presented to the Constitution Review Subcommittee in your party, correct? The Constitution Reform Party.
We formed, it's an ad hoc committee.
I get it.
Yes, which was formed.
It was presented to them. Why was it presented to them?
Which one?
Why was the proposal for early flag bearership race? Why was it presented to them?
It was part of the discussions on the very day Professor Makokwe's report was presented.
Good.
And it was drafted into that for them to take consideration. And
because it requires an amendment of your constitution.
No.
So why was it given to a body that is supposed to amend the constitution? Give proposal for amendment of the constitution when the thing you gave to them does not require amendment of the constitution?
Because the committee was asked to also consult and confer. And I can tell you, Brian Achampon appeared before the committee. His opinion was sought. Kennedy Ohene Ajapong appeared before the committee. His opinion was sought. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia appeared before the committee. His opinion was sought. Former President Kufuor was met in his house for a discussion. Former President Akufo-Addo, when they met him, they discussed this particular matter. Other stakeholders, Council of Elders of the party, this was discussed. And like I said, this matter came up on the very day the report of Professor Bakokwe.
Please let me have your copy of your constitution. Don't close it, just keep it to that provision, because
this matter did not need an amendment for it to be done.
Right.
It's just like when you have your court system. For example, parliamentary petitions.
This is Article 13.
Yes.
It's headed Election of the Presidential Candidate.
Yes.
13.1 says the election of the party's presidential candidate shall be held not later than 24 months from the date of the national elections.
Yes.
Not later than 24 months.
Exactly.
So this is within what your constitution provides. 31st of January 2026 is within this.
It's within.
Okay, thank you.
And you don't read in part, read in whole. Because you are the host. I want the people to get that.
It's okay, it's okay.
So reading it in whole.
I needed to confirm to myself
whether
it is only the venue and the dates that this council is allowed to vary, and whether or not before they can vary anything, you have to meet the first threshold. But from what you are suggesting, the first threshold is met.
Is met.
Okay.
And then the council can further decide to vary. That is what the constitution says.
Okay.
And like I said, in your court system, there are matters that has to emanate from a high court. There are matters that are supposed to emanate from the Supreme Court. So in the case of a petition for presidential elections, you know where it goes. In the case for parliamentary, you know where it goes. That is what this constitution has clearly satisfied. So we took the decision.
But what the constitution provides means that you have all the time to do the other elections from ground up before you get here, because your candidate must be elected within 2 years after the election.
Samson, the constitution did not say that you have the time to do all the elections. The issue of presidential primary is a stand-alone election. I've heard people said that you cannot roof a house when the foundation is not being done. And when a foundation is done, it's done on a structure. What is the structure of the party? The structure of the party contained in Article 5 of the party's constitution is clear. Structure and organization. We have the polling station, we have the electoral area, we have the constituency, We have the region, external branches, and the national party. This is the structure. The structure does not include presidential primaries. Presidential primaries is a stand-alone election.
So you are agreeing with those who argue that, like for Ladmochi, who argue that the foundation is actually the presidential primary?
Because
the candidate
stand-alone elections. And presidential primaries is done on necessity and the powers that may be in terms of contest, in terms of activities that is happening, in terms of the gauging of the environment and what actually you want to achieve. So
don't you feel that can't anything be done about this now that you seem to get some divergent views from other hopefuls? Should I say other hopefuls, or at least one of the hopefuls, a key contender, whose people are speaking and saying this arrangement does not favor their candidates, their potential candidates?
Samson, you know, I don't ask questions here, but you are a lawyer. If you are in court representing me, you are saying something in court, and I guess up to say something contrary. It is me. You are talking about me. What I said and what you say in court, which one will the judge take? What I said, because you are representing me.
If I'm representing you,
yes,
the court is supposed to listen to me and your lawyer, because I'm your attorney.
But in this case, you say something, I say, no, this is what I want. In this case, you are saying just one. We should listen to one. I tell you, in council meeting, Brian Achampong was sitting. He's a member of council. In council meeting, Dr. Yao Edichum was sitting in council. Okay? It's only Kennedy Ajapong who is not a member of council. Boacha Ajaku is a member of council, but he waived his attendance on that day. Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Baumia is a member of council. He was sitting. So, in fact, these people have been heard in committee and they have also been heard on the floor. And I can tell you on authority, on that day, when the decision was to be taken, you cannot take a decision without a motion. There was one motion, there was no counter motion. When my boss was asking, with this particular motion, do you have a counter motion? Nobody raised another motion. So there was no counter motion. So that is why we're saying that this was the only motion. We agreed on time. And Samson, other people are mentioning a certain date, saying that 7th December or so, polling station. That is untrue. Because the Constitution provides that before we conduct presidential primaries, the date has to be set pertaining to Article 13.1 by National Council must be situated within a period of 6 months. So choosing a date, the first motion chose a date which was not in conformity with the 6 months.
Okay.
And that was why the motion was further amended and to
I'll get Professor Bokping briefly on this before I hear from Shamima. So Professor Bokping is still here because we are going to deal with financial matters.
Just let me summarize on this point. When we took the decision and we came out with a timetable, I heard people talking about bottom or top or what have you.
Yeah.
This is something that we are not communicating and did not take further decisions on that. All those particular ones, timetables for those elections when they are due will come out.
Okay.
So this is not a matter for us to discuss now.
Now, Prof,
what is consensus?
Professor Kwekwa Asare says that allowing the old, and this is something others are also contending, allowing the old executives and delegates to vote in selecting a new flag bearer makes as much sense as using the 2024 voter registration manual to conduct the 2028 general elections. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. He continues. Outdated processes, expired mandates, and obsolete authority cannot govern future outcomes. This is not too complicated to understand. In a constitutional democracy, whether in the nation or within a political party, a mandate must be renewed before it can be exercised again. The rules are clear. When your term ends, your voting power ends too. Anything else is a shortcut, not a process. You can't shift the date just to entrench the voting power of old delegates. That's why the date change is unconstitutional, not merely because of process, but because of its effect. It risks the foundation of internal democracy. Dr. Nyawo Tamaklo makes almost a similar argument like this, as we have heard from Boache Jako. Yes, what do you say?
Yeah, Samson, I'm the odd one here because this is not my area.
Right.
But I had reasoned along this line, except that I have not been intelligent enough to put it the way Professor Kwekwaza and others have done. The little I know about Ghana's politics is that when it comes to democratic principles, we look to the MPP and how they've done it over there in terms of building the party. A strong party with its structures is most likely to deliver a strong leader that can take them to the next election. Okay, so I have not followed it, but it looks to me that they want to do it the other way around. They now want to elect the flag bearer before they go through the process of electing the other leaders from
at the lower level.
The rest of them. I'm not too sure this will work for the party because typically, and it is not so. I'm not too sure whether there's been any survey about whether the current leadership from national to regional to polling and the rest of them actually resonate with the grassroots, so that we can rely on those ones to choose the flag bearer for us. But this will be my suggestion to the MPP. Of course, it's not compulsory for them to come to power immediately and all of that. So they can choose to do whatever they want to do. But I think that the party should have a deep reflection about the path they want to go right now. Because anytime, my understanding is anytime you want to use purely the law to solve every problem, you may miss out on so many things. Your constitution may allow you to do this, but I think you should reflect broadly and all of that, and ensuring that whoever is elected is actually popular within the party, and the party structures can work with the person. There's a certain suspicion, I could be wrong, that perhaps this may be done to ensure or to work to the advantage of a candidate.
Dr. Baumia, yes, let's be blunt about it.
And that the more we delay, his popularity within the party will probably decline. And if we go through the process of electing constituency and the rest of them, the dynamics may change.
Because those elections will also be influenced.
Will also be influenced.
Right.
And then it gives the opportunity for other people to also begin to have their foot on the whole. If this is the case, then the party should be careful. Because at the end of the day, you need the entire party working well in a coordinated manner. I believe that if Dr. Baumia is a viable candidate,
so that ultimately the people who elected him first
are still on there.
Are the people who are going to elect him, who are going to elect the candidate again.
Yeah, I think MPP, they should take another look. I don't have any problem with Baumia leading the party, but the process, because if you baseline analysis of how they lost 2024, the procedure, the process in selecting the flag bearer also played a role. You may say it was not significant and all of that. So I think they should. We need a credible opposition. We need and all of that. But I don't know. It's not my area. So
right. That's okay. Thank you, Shamima. We have been told that NDC people who have been wading into this discussion are only seeking to protect their own interests, because if this thing happen as early as they want to do it, that is such a danger to the NDC.
Wow.
Because John Mahama does not have the opportunity of another term, and when you are in government, you are supposed to choose your flag bearer in the final year. And that would mean that they would have marketed their candidate, would have gone around the country, done all the campaign, and only about 6 months to election, you are now bringing your candidate. That would be to your disadvantage. So you will join those who don't support this?
Not at all. I mean, but for the fact that you have invited us into their problems, we would have been happy to be spectators to the evolution of, the challenges that the New Patriotic Party is going through. Not at all. I mean, I have said that the only threat against the NDC securing a renewed mandate is the NDC itself. Unfortunately for the New Patriotic Party, it is both their own internal challenges and the Herculean tax they would have ahead to justify why they need to be returned 4 years on after taking Ghana down a very rabid, hellhole, if I may say so. A number of things. I mean, observing from afar and listening to all that is happening, it would seem as if the key issues from within members of the New Patriotic Party itself is the timing, and it's also concerns about party unity, whether this particular action will be a masterstroke to further nail the coffin of despondency and despair, for the New Patriotic Party, or a masterstroke that will give them a new leash, on life to put together a strong showing, hopefully, for them towards the 2028 election, and calls for transparency. Calls for transparency because we have had primaries that have happened within the New Patriotic Party that major senior members of the party have had to come and disclose to all of us that the processes were not fair, they were not inherently equitable and just, and that the eventual mandate was a procured mandate. These are all testimonies from within the camp of the New Patriotic Party. So those who have these concerns about transparency and the real motive and intent behind, kind of like turning their own constitution upside down. Because look, I have heard lawyers speak about the internal logic of our 1992 constitution. And when you read about where power lies, power lies in the people, right? Yeah. They merely vested.
You begin from the preamble. You don't even get to Article 1 before you hear that in the Constitution.
The sovereignty
resides in the people.
In the people.
At another point, it says it springs from the people.
So if constitutionally, even at that suprastructure level, NPP seems to be disconnected from the importance of empowering your base and, engaging in a bottom-up approach to leadership. Like I said,
but however they do it will still come from the people.
Well, will it?
However they do it will still come from the people.
I don't have much to say about the structure, but I just have a few, words of advice if they will take
to
it.
Help them build their
because
party.
for me, I think that the NPP has, they've taken this nation down a certain stead, and the extent of their loss has still not sunk in, because you see, trauma and trauma response manifest differently. You would agree with me that the loss of the New Patriotic Party has not given them an opportunity to sit in. Sometimes you need to sit in your grief a bit and then do the necessary recompense, do your review, do your reflections, make your confessions. Here we are, that you're asking people to come on a journey of reforms that they do not even know the reasons for those, because many members of the party say they don't even still know why the party lost. So how are they able to come with you on this, reform journey? I read a book recently, my brother, Ministry of the Dispossessed. In fact, I bought it because of the title. I was in traffic when I saw the book, Ministry of the Dispossessed, and it's about the South African situation. But I think that in our case, if you take the title of that book, Ministry of the Dispossessed, it was a period that the New Patriotic Party, in the case of Ghana, compulsorily ushered all of us into an interdenominational ministry of the dispossessed for the citizens of this country. What did they do? under the Nana Bawumia regime, they literally dispossessed the citizens, the majority of the citizens of Ghana, of our incomes, of our savings, of our investments, of our dignity, of our voice even to express ourselves, of our pensions, as we know, homes. Mortgages were lost as a result of the colossal mismanagement of the economy. And it was a really dark time for many people, and I think many members of the party concede to this. But for the leaders who continue to show post-strings like there have been no lessons learned at all from the experience of the 2024 election, tables have turned, luckily. Ghanaian peoples, we literally pulled ourselves out of the doldrums through our, bootstraps and bootstraps and the power of our thumb to vote massively against, the New Patriotic Party. What has happened now that is a reversal of the rules, where the New Patriotic Party have also entered their own ministry of the dispossessed. They've been dispossessed of the mandate of the people of Ghana. They've been dispossessed of power and influence. They've been dispossessed of quite a few things. And this level of dispossession requires some deep, sober reflections. However, if you make a comparative analysis in the era of the NDC, when the NDC lost elections, if you looked at the conduct and the character of the opposition, at least in the first year or so in opposition, it's quite distinct and different from the New Patriotic Party. They seem to have hit the ground running in a reverse direction as members of the opposition because of their push-strings and, the activities they have engaged in, the disruptions, which seem to suggest to and the justifications of their tenure. At every turn, they take an opportunity to justify, and try to, again, play this game and mind games of telling Ghanaians that you did the wrong thing by voting us out. At a point that they know what they had done, how they hurt this country, they still haven't recovered from, that traumatic experience. So what I would say is that trying to jump the broom before the time may not work in the interest of restoration. Because if you truly want to do a deep and sober reflection, those on whose hands the defeat happened may not necessarily be trusted to lead a fair and a just process. That is why it was important to go by your own bottom-up approach. Hold elections. Let those who qualify to contest, let them contest. Let the people give you renewed mandate and power to lead them into the next, even towards your national
but you are definitely
primaries.
worried. You are definitely worried about the circumstances that you find yourself.
Don't say you are definitely. Ask the question.
Worried about the circumstances the NDC find yourselves.
Which is?
That President Mahama will have to exit. Are you also thinking to innovate so that you can have early primaries, the fear of the president becoming a lame duck?
It is not the candidate the NDC eventually chooses that will determine the outcome of the 2028 elections. It is the legacy His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is going to leave behind. It is the economy we're going to leave behind. It is the lives we change positively that is going to make that determination. So whoever emerges victorious in the NDC primaries will just be an icing on the cake, which is why I keep reminding ourselves that, look, we have the power to easily get a renewed mandate. If we do, we work hard, we work right, and we work smart.
Interesting.
And that is the work of the NDC, and we deal with
So Prof, this situation we find ourselves in, where we just come out of an election and another campaign season is already kicking in. Some have suggested before that we should have, prohibited periods like places like France and Japan, where they have between 12 to 14 days before the election. Even in Nigeria and India, they have between 1 to 6 months to the elections.
Samson, I agree to a large extent. And let me say this. I've said it somewhere that President Mahama, in his first term, we practically did not allow him to govern. This is his best time. And I believe that things have been done in such a way that he's got that peace of mind to some extent. If you look at from the 2012 election, then the election petition, right from there, we've practically moved, the MPP moved into a campaign.
We had almost 9 months of petition.
Yes. And from there we moved. So the policy space had so much to contend with, and here and there. So to that extent, we'll say that.
Okay.
But I believe that the NDC should focus on transforming the lives of Ghanaians. That should be their priority. Of course, they can look at the election date and the rest of them. But I believe that every party is also trying to assess their strengths, the entry point, and to the extent that for now, they can start anytime they want to start and all of that.
Okay.
Let's see how we manage that.
Right. So we need to terminate this quickly because we have another discussion. And Professor Enin has to join us. Don't worry. Hold on briefly. Suleimana Isifu says that the lower level elections have not created rancor like we are seeing the presidential already doing. Thus, for quelling internal strife and healing quickly ahead of 2028 elections, it is important to quickly do the flag bearer election, which undoubtedly is a major fault line in the party. The current executives still have a mandate. And so, Professor Azan's argument, respectfully, is invalid.
It's a bruised mandate. It's a bruised mandate. That is the reality of the mandate.
Yes.
What has been the pattern over the years?
It's not a fact. That's what has been stated.
Then why wouldn't they allow Bawumia to just continue because he's the flag bearer
He
now?
cannot continue because he has to get a mandate.
Very bruised mandate. It's a questionable mandate to shepherd over
the point
elections.
The point that has been raised is what is being questioned. And this is a fact. It's an authoritative platform.
Okay, thank you. Doc, I said I'll return to you a very limited time in some 2-3 minutes. What can you say about the caliber of hopefuls that you are seeing? Those that we know so far. Bawumia, obviously, in there wants to continue. They insist that this is how the party has done it over the period. They don't take you to the polls once and ditch you. You have Ken Ejapong. Then you have Yao Osei Duchum. Then you have Brian Champong. And then we are being told also that, Kwabena Japong may come in. Briefly, what do you say about all these people, including those I suggested may be the dark horse?
Yes. So, I mean, obviously, I haven't followed much the politics of Dr. Educhum, the former Minister for Education. Neither have I, Honorable Brian Champong. Of course, you've seen them in the space every so often. Kwabena Japong, I think in 2024, as he went around some of the issues he was bringing up, discussing, I felt did resonate with some people. I feel like at the end of the day, the race is going to boil down between the former Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, and Kennedy Agyapong, Honorable Kennedy Agyapong. I have to be very careful with what I'm about to say next. My mother is a big fan of Kennedy Agyapong, so I don't want to offend my mother. But of those two, I'm not a big fan of adversarial politics. I mean, I know that sometimes that's how politics gets. Ken's politics, for me, sometimes is a bit too adversarial. That's what my mom likes about him, but that makes me a little uncomfortable. And for the former vice president, I think the lessons from 2024 and the extent to which it was him that the Ghanaians were rejecting, or whether it was the party itself and that by default he happened to be the party's candidate. Therefore, he had to suffer the consequences for the shifts that we had seen in how Ghanaians were feeling about the NPP. For me, if he can understand that and find a way to articulate a response to it, he can emerge again as the party's candidate. And my unsolicited advice is there is a Bawumia that emerged on the day he gave his concession speech. And that day, as I listened to him give that concession speech, I said to myself, this is the Bawumia that, in my opinion, was largely missing in the 2024 election. And so if he can find a way to understand fully what happened in 2024 and find a way to keep and sustain that Bawumia that emerged on the morning where he gave his concession speech, I see no reason why he can't emerge victorious again in the upcoming primary.
Okay. All right. And so, like you said, very little to say about the others. But I don't know. You haven't seen Duchum trying to come in. You haven't also seen, what's his name, Brian Champong, trying to come in. And also because of his youthful nature, he's only 52.
I mean, I've seen, I saw a video that he released when he was talking about he has commissioned a committee to do some research, come back to him with issues that he believes would resonate not just with the party, but also with the Ghanaian people. And that is what would inform his decision. Like I said, with Dr. Educhum, mainly for me, it's been his work as a deputy and then a minister for education. Okay. But the two candidates that I have really followed them over the years are Dr. Bawumia, and Honorable Kennedy Jepong. The reason why, for me, they are the two that I have a lot more to say about than the rest.
You share the view. I know time is up, so I have to move on. The claim that it is possible for the delegates and the MPP to begin to say, we don't want to go with Bawumia, but we also don't want to go with Ken. So let's look for a middle way, and that will become when Duchum and Brian Champong will shine.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some of that. I've heard some of that narrative, especially given the magnitude of the loss that was suffered in 2024. I've heard some people say perhaps the choice to lead the party wasn't Dr. Bawumia. But again, if you look at all the political dynamics, the economic realities, that face the party going into 2024, I don't know if any other candidate would have gotten them victory. If you look at Afrobarometer, the NPP lost that election in 2020.
Some other candidate may have gotten them worse results, you think?
that is also a possibility, but the odds were too against the NPP in 2024.
That was obvious. Today they admit what they, at the time, they refused to admit. Today when you speak to them in the closet, they will tell you that they knew they were losing the elections, but they had to try and give the NDC a bit of a fight because it was really terrible. Really terrible. It was almost untenable to return the NPP to power in the 2024 elections. Anyway, thank you. I'm sorry. We need to.
They must avoid any semblance of manipulating them or attempting.
It is only fair. Just a minute to you, please. I need
to.
Just a minute.
Because all of them.
Just only you. Just a minute, please. Do it quickly.
Samson, first, no executive mandate has expired. The polling station executive's mandate will expire in 2026 March. The electoral area, March 2026. The constituency, April 2026. Regional, May 2026. And the national, July 2026. Again, there is no provision in our party constitution that says that the polling station executive can only elect a candidate for once. The polling station executives are not, or delegates are not barred from electing candidates when their time did not expire. They can continue.
Sharima spoke about looking at the law with a sense of logic.
There is no law.
And reasonableness. If you are voted into office for 4 years, you should, how many years is it? You should get out, or 2 years.
No,
you should get out before you impose a candidate on the new ones about to take over. That's the argument.
It's not about getting out. It is about the procedure. This has been a procedure.
But how have you done it in the time past?
The point is that you cannot stay strict to a jacket. The point is at any point in time.
Okay, thank you.
But let me say, Prof said that it's not compulsory for us to come back to power. It is compulsory. It's compulsory. You can see it that way.
I'm just
but it is. Hey. And also, we have not conducted, or we are not doing what we are doing to favor any candidate. Again, we cannot, like Shamima said, that we are turning the constitution upside down. There's no any procedure in the constitution that we have turned any upside down.
They're talking about the natural order which has been your precedent.
The point is that.
So you agree that you are changing
the election is a standalone. It's a standalone, and that is why we are beacons of democracy.
You are in special circumstances, and you are finding a solution
but
to
in
it.
these
People agree to
circumstances,
that.
the reason that emanated from these committees for us to take the decision is that there has been 6 months of animosity. Rancor, people, negative speech, and all that. We can get 3 years to heal and to patch up all those particular processes.
Thank you.
We have political persecutions out there. We need a leader that will be able to put all of that, the rank and file, together. And also, if there is that early, it will de-escalate the entire negative tendencies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This show is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years plus. DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie. Is it the roof before the structure, they say? My Way Insurance. Dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Flamingo Paints. It's simply superior. Syntex Tanks. It's strong, it's tough. Activa Insurance. They are proud to be associated with Newsfile. We've seen some of your messages, but we are limited by time. Kofi Bentil insists that he is waiting to hear plans for the nation which are better than what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had already proposed, and he hasn't seen that yet. Mahmoud Bawumia is still the best bet for the NPP. Manasseh Azuri-Awini also repeats the same claim that Bawumia is the best bet for the NPP. Kofi Bentil, he said the revocation of the LI will not happen, and it has come to pass. He said they will not do it. Today is his birthday. Rebel. We'll be right back. Thank you very much. The discussion continues, and my guests won't even hear me that we are back on the air.
People will not listen to advice.
You have been listening to Godfrey Bokping, Professor of Finance and Economics at the University of Ghana, Dr. John Osai Kwapong, Fellow, CDD Ghana, and Project Director, the Democracy Project, Alhaji Haruna Mohammed, Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, and Shamima Muslim, Deputy Presidential Spokesperson. Earlier, we spoke to Reverend Father Michael Kweku, Director of Governance and Justice, Peace, Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. Joining us now is Professor Kwesi Enim, Security Analyst. Prof, thank you very much. And we're starting straight with you on the matter of what gains we seem to be making in our economy, and Fitch also now giving us a nod. The finance minister is excited. He says we are on a trajectory that we are going to sustain. Then suddenly, the Middle East shows up in the way it has. Some, oil areas are suffering some of the bombing. What do you say? Where are we headed?
Well, we are certainly not heading into a very good place. And it is not as sudden as it looks. When you have a country that has a sense, and I'm talking about Israel, a sense of superiority and an unabiding confidence in its right to determine how other people should behave and think, then that type of behavior creates, tensions and uncertainty. So, Samson, we are heading into a period of global uncertainty and deepening tension. And far away, Ghana, we've already started to feel it. This Israeli arrogance in which its ambassador to Ghana wants to give us basic lessons in international diplomacy and geopolitics. And I'm happy the foreign minister called him and gave him a dressing down. But Mr. Finance Minister's optimism will need to be checked by the hands-on, practical interventions to protect the economy from the shocks that we are going to see. And I think already something we are seeing how Ghana is re-evaluating its economic policy, leading to the suspension of the petroleum levy, which was supposed to have given us about $5.7 billion in extra revenue. So that is a hole that we are supposed, or the minister will have to fill. So on the economic side, we are going to see crude oil prices rise. Already stock markets are experiencing sharp corrections and readjustments. Investor confidence as to the extent to which their investments are going to grow, particularly in emerging markets, are being shaken. We are going to notice deepening supply route disruptions if the Strait of Hormuz is attacked. Already the Egyptians are worried about the impact on the Suez Canal through considerably long detours by ships, leading to delivery costs and rise in insurance premiums. So all that will affect Ghana. But we need a very delicate balancing act because we have very deep relationship with the Israelis. Actually, we are the first country on this continent in which the Israeli Defense Forces contributed to training the 64th Battalion in counterterrorism measures that were then practiced in Accra under a simulated exercise called Operation Home Shield. So Ghana's relationship with Israel in terms of development, technology, agriculture, and security, and of course, similar relationships with Iran will have to be evaluated consistently. But I would argue that the position that Ghana has taken now, abstaining on the non-proliferation, treaty vote, and consistently urging both sides to the conflict to be tempered in their actions, is the right way to go. But certainly the economy is going to suffer.
Possible quick.
To say a name, I think that yes, in the last 5 months or so, government has also demonstrated a commitment to economic stability, and I think that is also comforting because what we have seen is that we don't have control over these external shocks, but your ability to withstand that depends on how well you manage your economy and all of that. So far, if you look at the 4 thematic areas that Fitch and a lot of the rating agencies who used to assess a country, we are doing well along almost all the 4. The structural issues, about governance, there's been a lot of reforms under the IMF-supported program, and even the government is fast-tracking some of them, some that we needed to meet somewhere September, thereabout, they've brought it forward and all of that. And when it comes to economic performance, you can see the GDP growth has been higher than even the IMF forecast consistently and all of that. But of course, there also, if you see the volatility with the growth, it tells you that we need to, the resilience is not there the way we expect, but we are making the progress. Then again, when it comes to public finance, and I think when it comes to public finance, government is doing well. I have congratulated them in terms of the expenditure-based fiscal consolidation they've adopted relative to the revenue-based fiscal consolidation that imposes a lot of burden on Ghanaians. Then again, if you look at external balance, of course, the government inherited considerable reserves from the previous administration. So all of that. So if you look at it along this, one would have even expected that the rating could have come a little earlier and all of that. Then again, if you see so far, in terms of the pass-through, we haven't seen the kind of jump in terms of world oil price that we had anticipated and all of that. But the question is, how would this persist?
Iran, as we understand, contributes 4% of global oil production, and 4 of their fuel depots or refineries have been impacted by what is going on.
Yes.
And just that, if you check even gas prices in the US, it's really gone up.
Yes. So unfortunately for Ghana, we don't have a buffer. So sometimes we say, we have the resilience. From the reserve point of view, yes. But in terms of national fuel, even in the event that there's disruption in the global supply chain, how long can we continue and all of that? But I think the good thing also is that government recognizes that, and I'm sure is a reason, as Professor Nim said, is a reason they decided to shelve the 1 Ghana cedi levy, even though I felt that there was scope for it to stay a little bit and monitor the development before you take it. That's my considered view and all of that. Because at the end of the day, you are looking at it that you need to balance the fiscal discipline, expenditure cut, and the need to also spend progressively to engineer growth and create what we call job-rich growth. So those are the delicate things that we have to move on. But if you see the jump in terms of the scaling of the rating, I think that is quite good. And of course, you can't take the joy away from the Minister of Finance and all of that, because remember, it's a lot of sacrifice. And he's put his colleague ministers on the waiting list simply because he wants to put the books, the numbers in the right shape and all of that. So, of course, his colleague minister may not be totally happy because they also went to the various ministries with a vision and they need the money to implement that. But I think going forward, I believe that they will need to balance that and they will need to rake in a lot of revenue.
Prof. Enin, what should be our role somewhat, if any at all, to ensure that we are mitigating the impact?
Well, I mean, on the economy, there's not too much I can say. But I think mitigating the impact diplomatically on this continent will have to be done through the African Union. Already there seems to be clear split. If you look at the utterances, coming from most African countries, the South Africans, Algeria, Tunisia, Sudan have utterly and in the strongest possible ways condemned what Israel is doing. We have restrained ourselves together with Nigeria. Egypt has expressed deep, concerns over the impact on Egypt itself, but certainly over the Suez that contributes substantial sums to its economy. Look, African states will have to reshape the nature of our alliances. And for West Africa, certainly Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal can lead that charge. The African Union is not showing the leadership that we need. So a combination of these 3 countries, plus Egypt, Algeria, and South Africa, can begin that process of having a conversation first at the Peace and Security Council, but also at least within the public domain. What do we do and how do we negotiate this very tricky global space? Because the geopolitics and the alliances as we know them are continuously shifting. And I think people like all of us in this on this platform right now can and should contribute to this debate. But
so
reshaping
a position ought to be taken as into responding to the call by the Iranian ambassador to Ghana, who says that, you know, all responsible and peace-loving members of the international community should not remain indifferent, and that they have to take urgent collective measures to hold the regime and its supporters accountable?
We need to, because you see, if you take the last vote on the non-proliferation treaty, Israel is not a member of that agreement, but has the temerity to say Iran, that is a member of the treaty, is not complying with the terms of the treaty. So we want to put vote. Therein lies my argument for Africa to reshape its alliances, but also to show the urgency that is necessary. We don't have the power, we don't have the money, but we can bring some morality back into how international instruments and agreements are interpreted and hopefully also applied.
But these are people who are afraid of their enemies seeking to erase them from the face of the earth.
Yes, but that is ahistorical. Israel always presents itself as the victim, but the politics of the Middle East points to something totally different. If you look at the pictures from the 1940s and 50s and 60s, okay, almost everything they had on it state of Palestine.
Okay.
Not the Palestine. Now that narrative is totally lost. So I think we need to go back to history and not allow the Israelis to determine the content and the mode of.
Thank you very much. I'll take 30 seconds from Shamima. And Suleimana, is it the impact on oil prices will start coming in if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, which is the choke point of global oil transport, accounting for 24%. So we shouldn't be surprised that the impact is yet to be felt. This is because the Strait of Hormuz will still operate on full
before
steam.
The impact, I think that we can all agree that we have made some modest gains since, you know, we came.
Time is up, unfortunately.
The deep collaboration that is happening between the managers of the economy, and I'm proud to say, I mean, when I hear independent voices affirm that the indicators and the outlook is positive, that is reassuring. We do know that we may go into choppy waters, so what we keep reminding ourselves is that this country, this economy, we all need to work together to weather the storms. When the challenges come, know that there's a president that is totally committed to resetting the economy and making it work for Ghanaians, and
thank you very much. Thank you very much. My outfit is by Konati Clothing, 0244676732, and they have a 10% discount for you. Have a good afternoon.